Hello and welcome to Self Talk. I'm your host, Rachel Astarte. Today, my guest is Michael McGinnis. He has dedicated his life to the awakening of humanity on a global level. Through extensive self-study and firsthand experience, he has been gifted to serve as a channel for the words the world needs to hear at the most crucial moment in history. He's the author of the Essential Revolution series. Book 1 is called The Essential Revolution. Book 2 is now out. It's called The Invitation. And down the line, we can expect Book 3, which is called The Summoning. Thank you so much, Michael, for being on Self Talk.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I can't wait to dive into our subject today, which is the gift within the victim mindset. Now, as a psychotherapist, I see the victim mindset a lot, and it is a subject that I don't think is talked about nearly enough. But before we dive into that, I wonder if you could give us a sense of how you came to the work that you do.
I've had maybe, I'd say, 5 very strong transformational experiences in my life. Beginning at the age of 23. I wouldn't call that spiritual so much, although we could say everything is in reality. But yeah, I went to a course where I was able to see how I had been playing a story in my head of victimization, and was able to transform that into something else that served me, and was able to watch the self-talk in my head. That's what they really teach you there.
Mm-hmm.
And not realizing that there's a programmed inner conversation that has been going on for who knows how many years, and being kind of dropped down through the ages. And then when I got I moved to Costa Rica right after that one first transformation, and I ended up over years going through all kinds of interesting ups and downs and success, and then things happen that aren't so great, and then I had some other experiences, and the big one was through a visionary journeys that I had, and that really jolted me into my path of self-awakening, and to help others who are ready as well.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that amazing how when we wake up, one of the first things we want to do is help others do the same?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is our true nature, actually, is to help. So yeah, and when you have a really profound awakening, you really want, and it is kind of, there's just all these things that go along with that, with you wanting to wake others up. There's that part where you're like, I can't believe my brother won't wake up. Well, it also has to do when he or she is ready, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So you have to find
Right.
that part out kind of hard.
Right. Well, you can build the structure and people can come. If you build it, they will come. And not everybody will.
That's
And
right.
and in fact, that kind of leads us very nicely, segues into the victim mindset. Let's just start, for those who aren't aware, how would you define a victim mindset?
Uh, well, we've got a lot of it going on in the world right now, with what we would call wokeism,
Mm-hmm.
where everybody seems to be pointing the finger outward at
Yes.
everyone else for everything and all problems of the world, and making sure that certain group are being pounded on, while another one is being raised, and it's happening in all different ways, and
Yeah.
it's lunacy, and so the victim mindset would be anytime that we are either in our own story of our victimhood, or we are pushing someone else's story, which might not even be their story. We're just creating that. And I say I don't do this, because this is what a woke person would do. There's we call it in the book, we call it the PVT, the parasitic victim triad. And that's where
Mm.
you have your supposed, well, the victim, will call it the person for whatever reason, this racial group or whatever it is, and then you have the perpetrator, who's this maybe it's a white male or whatever it is, and then you have the false savior here that needs to keep this person a victim so that this person can be wrong and they can be right. So it's
Right.
this very toxic cycle, yeah, so that's how I look at it.
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting. Episode 100 of this podcast, we actually address the difference between woke and awake, and how woke is a function of the ego, and awake is a function of spirit and discernment. And so I love that you brought that up as a perfect example of what that can look like. And I mean, obvious question, but what sort of damage can be done with this perpetuation of the victim mindset? It certainly feels good, doesn't it? It feels good to be the one who's wounded and the one who needs saving, right? And I think there's an intoxication that happens a little bit with that when people get stuck. So what happens when that goes unchecked?
Well, first of all, it's kind of funny when you talked about the difference between, awakened and woke. The hero, by the way, my book is allegorical fiction, so it's not a nonfiction book. It's a whole story. It's a drama, and our character definitely talks about the distinction between the two, and he actually makes a joke. He says he believes that the darkness created used the word woke so that it would fool people, so they would think that they were awakened.
Exactly.
So their egos could say, "Look I'm woke, I'm awakened."
Yeah,
well, no, it's actually the polar opposite. The woke person is actually the most asleep that you can be, because what we want to do, in my opinion, is in all spiritual practice that I've ever been involved in, is we want to empower people. Is the world funky, and are there people out there who are maybe they don't like you because of whatever reason, however you identify, or maybe your color of your skin or whatever it is. Well, those aren't our people. Those aren't your people.
Right.
They're non-PC. They're out there playing their role, doing what they're doing. And vibrationally, I won't attract those people in my life, nor will somebody who's standing in their empowerment. Now, I wonder, for people who want to play that victim role and stay in it, if they're going to actually draw in more reinforcement that is a real problem in the world. See, for me, I don't look at it as a real problem in the world. I say that all things are out. There's all kinds of problems in the world, and are you going to become a victim to them? And what if it doesn't get unchecked? And what's happening in our world right now is we start to see laws change, where if you say, like in Canada now, you go to jail if you don't say things correctly. If you say something that offends somebody, you can actually go to jail for it. And same with England. Those two countries are in the process of changing their laws. This is tyranny. This is sick. And what people don't understand, though, even the woke people, I don't know if they understand, but this will actually turn on them because it's parasitic in nature. And this energy, this is like it's a crazy thing,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also very interesting because I know we're focusing on woke as an example of victim mentality, but and we can expand that in a moment. But the this feeling that like justice is being done because I'm speaking up. I'm saying those people over there are wrong and bad, and my feelings matter. Right. So if I've been offended because you use the wrong pronouns, or if I've been offended because, you looked at me in a sexual way when I was not ready for that, as opposed to that just being a human response to something that is attractive. Right. Right. You know what I mean? We stop talking to each other. And that's where I see the breakdown. So it's righteousness in the form of lack, right? Lack of connection, and so Sri Ramana Maharshi has this exchange with a student who says, how shall we deal with others? And Sri Ramana Maharshi says, there are no others. That's how you deal with them. Right? So it involves a great big leap to understand that, of course, your feelings are valid, but how much of this is self-generated, right? How much of the feeling of victimhood is self-generated based on childhood wounding, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and a lot of those people who are out there sticking up for others and whatnot, it's really their way of lashing out at their process that they haven't completed within themselves of their story. And of course they don't have what it takes maybe inside of them to come out and say, I've been hurt, I need to work through this. They don't do
Yes.
that. Instead, they're lashing out, because you don't see healthy people that are woke. I mean, you don't see spiritual, like truly people that are on the real path. I'm talking like the path where you analyze every word you say, everything. Like Neil Donald Walsh talks about it in what is that? The book, the series he wrote, Conversations with God. And he talks about like every word that comes out of your mouth, every thought that you have, when you're on the path, when you really dive onto it, you stop and you listen to yourself, say, why did I say that?
Mm-hmm.
Why did I think that? Where did that come from? These people don't do that. They just crazy, and I mean, of course that's my perception of course, and I have to have compassion, but it is getting difficult.
Yeah.
Because it's shifting our world in such a negative way. But I feel like it's starting to turn. People are starting to laugh at a little bit. This
Yes.
whole ESG thing, all this stuff is starting to be like, no, we're not going to, because it really doesn't work. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work at the end of the day. What works
Yeah.
at the end of the day is, like you said, connection and speaking and saying, hey, and us really empowering each other to be strong enough to go out into a world that is hard. And guess what? It's probably going to get a bit harder with all the stuff that's going down right now. And so why not empower people so that they're stronger and they can handle this? Because planet Earth is a tough place for us spirit beings that came down here to walk around in these suits and go, oh God, what's that?
Yeah, which is all of us, right? So
All of us.
right, we are all spirits having a human experience. And so that's a great segue too into, what is a way to step out of victimhood, becoming your best self, as people say, getting out of that victimhood. Maybe you can start with how it worked for you. How did you, what was it that shook you out of victimhood?
I went to this course, and I was 23 years old, 22 years old. I went to this course that my dad had done it. They changed the name of it when he had done it in the 70s, I guess. And he was trying to get me to do it. And I was like 17. I'm like, I don't want to do that. And then this girl that I was kind of hanging out with, she says, you got to go to this thing. I go, what is it? And I go, oh, okay, I'll do it, I guess. And really what it was they really go into the fact that you talk to yourself, and that you are taking in all these things that other people have said, and you believe that there's something called good, bad, right, or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can make someone else wrong, then you sort of win and you feel better. And I think what the core of the teaching is that everybody is doing the best that they could with what they have in their tool chest. By the way, my books really pound on this subject because especially the first one, because it really is important for a person to move beyond their story if they want to really start to get in this process of awakening, because there's so many other places you're going to go, but you've got to shed that. And one way is to have that compassion. Well, that's impossible. That person did this, and we'll think of something very horrific. And I would argue, yeah, I understand, and it's terrible. And if I'm in the room and I hear something's going on, I'm going to open the door and say, hey, no, not that I believe that that's correct, but it happened. It's done at the time they were doing best. So we find compassion for these people, and or the government, whatever it is you're blaming. And then you can also even ask yourself, like, break it down to the ridiculous, like, what does it really mean what they did? And maybe you'll come up with, well, it's just unfair. And I would say, have you ever been unfair to a person in your life? It's cruel. Have you ever said a cruel word? So what wasn't as bad? Well, where's the line? Is there some imaginary line out there where you get a break if it wasn't as bad as what? No, we all came here to have this journey, and it's going to be difficult. And so, yeah, if you're, I guess the best way I say this to do it is to look for the ways to move away from it, because if you don't, life is going to stay difficult and become more difficult. That would be like the number one thing I could say to somebody.
Right. You're carrying that anger, that pain, that wounding while wearing that suit of righteousness, right?
Exactly. And then who are you going to draw into your life? You're going to draw more perpetrators, and you're just going to have, the cycle has to keep continuing, because what it's trying to do is it's like the universe knocking on the door saying, I am here to help you through this and to move on. And so it's going to keep send you reinforcements until you bust or just die miserably. And it happens every day.
Yeah, it really does. And then there's this equivocation thing, like, well, killing someone isn't the same as saying a cruel word. My injustice, my infraction isn't as bad as this person's. And, that can also lead into just more separation, right?
More separation.
Yeah. And so in case people are listening and hearing like, wow, you guys sound really pissed off, I've gotten that feedback.
Really? Oh,
Oh
I'm not
yeah,
pissed off at
like
all.
you've got to go inside yourself and get rid of your anger. I'm not angry. I'm not angry. There is righteous anger. There's righteous anger, but I think at the base of all anger is hurt. And it's the hurt of seeing the disconnection of my brothers and sisters.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And so and so that moves us to the positive, right? What can we do? Let's start with something easy. It seems easy. The pain of being wronged is a visceral thing. It becomes intellectual. It becomes like it becomes our identity. But the physical pain, that collapse internally, what do we do with the pain of being wronged if we are to move past victimhood?
Well, a lot of it is you've got to release it, right? And sometimes what people do when they go through these processes is they get to a point where all that buildup of anger and pain has to come out somewhere because it's probably stored in the body somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like say, like, when you go through this process, be somewhere where you can make some noise when you cry and really like let this thing go, and there are really great people out there that can help people through this. I'm not angry at all. I guess, I would almost say that the person that wrote that is really saying, I am angry,
Yeah.
because I don't feel anger in this conversation. I'm not angry at people who are carrying around the victim, that are in the victim mindset. They need to be there right at this moment. But they actually, I believe they came to this planet, we all did, to draw ourselves away from the truth, capital T truth, God, let's say, because the baby comes out, it's perfect. It's just like
Right.
loves everything and everybody. And then all of a sudden it learns that there's another, in this illusion of separateness, like,
Right.
oh, there's a you and a me and a that, and that's mine. And we learn this stuff. I believe we came here to unlearn, to remember what we truly are, and to go back home. So
Mm-hmm.
you being in your victim mindset or whatever is somehow perfect. I don't want to be around it. So if it's like barking at me, I'm going to walk away, because frequency wise, it's not a high vibration, in my opinion. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
around it, but there's no anger here.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's be very clear too, because what you just described energetically is a separation. I don't want to be around that energy.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
let's talk for a second about that, because this is really important. It's deep stuff, but it's really important. What's the difference then between separating somebody's energy from yours and not seeing them as the other, capital O, other?
So in the book, the hero talks about letting people go in love, like,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know. I mean, we just went through this whole big separation thing with COVID and the thing and
Yeah.
all this, and I've had people like on me, and I just said, okay, but if we look at the way frequency works and vibration, we're not going to be around something that doesn't vibrate with us. That's why woke people all kind of congregate together, and then
Mm-hmm.
people who are maybe awakened to seem to find their own. And when you go through a process of awakening, you start to lose friends, like this. Not
Oh
like
yeah,
you're, oh,
absolutely.
what a right, it happens. So I think it's a frequency specific matter to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And then a good point about, well, how does that difference from our overall talk about separation? Well, I think there's a big difference between what feels to be me an actual push to separate people, like from the media and whoever's pulling those strings, or let's say whatever, because I think this goes way deeper than a bunch of men with fluffy white cats sitting around a round table going hee hee hee. I think it's way beyond that. I think
Yeah,
this is
yeah, for
a
sure.
massive thing that we're experiencing, and it's as hard as it is, we have to at least, like, for me, what makes me get up in the morning is go, okay, I somehow chose this. And then people say, well, how do you know you chose it? I choose to know that I chose it. How's that? Because
Mm-hmm.
I am the creator of this reality. This is what our guide teaches in the book, that
Yeah.
we are creating our reality. So I am saying I chose this. I am saying this is what I choose in my life. This is what I choose to either believe or know. And it depends on what those things are. And I have my own sets of beliefs and my knowings, and that's where I stand. And I think when we look at the whole other the people that are doing the victimhood thing, I think that they don't realize that they have a choice. And it's an interesting thing, right? Because they do, but then again, they don't, because they don't know that they do. So they're sort of in this weird whirlwind spiral,
Yeah, yeah. And again, it's whether or not, it sounds like from what you're saying, letting people go in love, it sounds like whether you are holding on to anger and pain or not.
That's it. That's it. Because you're always there with the lantern in the dark. I'm over here. You're always there. You don't go like this and push. We don't do that.
Right, right.
I mean, my tribe, we are there for everybody and anyone who's ready to step into their awakening, step into taking responsibility for themselves, for their actions, their words, full authenticity as best we can. We're practicing that constantly. And so we're standing here if we're not really waiting, but like they're there just in case somebody makes a turn and comes back and says, "Oh my gosh, I don't do that anymore. It was a different person back then."
Right.
Oh, come on, how you doing? And it's happened. I've seen it happen. It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. I've noticed it. I've seen it as well, and it's such a beautiful thing when that happens. And it doesn't often happen when you have the feeling of someone disrespecting you. When somebody turns around and says, "I'm genuinely sorry," it's much harder to accept that apology because you're still living with the anger. You're still living with the hurt instead of letting it go. Right. So I don't trust that you actually are remorseful about what you've done. Right. As opposed to, if I step away from someone whose energy is not in alignment, or is maybe even damaging, and I'm doing that in love, if they turn back around, it's like, well, we can have a conversation for sure. Let's see what this is all about. And as opposed to, you crossed me and you're dead to me, as my Sicilian father used to say. Right.
You did to me.
Right. You're dead to me. So of course he was joking.
Yeah.
But that is part of the culture.
Yeah.
Right. Beautiful. So let's talk for a minute about the process of your personal awakening. You had a plant medicine journey to heal yourself, and by extension, do your best, or at least make it available to heal others. I wonder if you would be comfortable sharing a bit of that. Now, I know, having been on several plant journeys myself, it's hard to talk about the thing that has no language, but
right.
But do your best if you could.
Oh, I'm pretty good at this part. Yeah.
Okay, good. And first of all, what was the medicine or medicines that you worked with?
The first one was ayahuasca, and I didn't know what this thing was. I was living a pretty unconscious life, although I had that transformational experience that got me out of victimhood. It just makes life available. You can do what you can get what you could have a life, and that was great. And then I got everything in life, and I fell when I had it all. And then I discovered Eckhart Tolle's work, and I realized this thing about being present and witnessing that there's another you that's really not you talking and thinking. That was great. And then I kept falling some more because it was more of a thing with my girlfriend, and things were falling apart. And these people say, "Hey, you want to come to this?" There's a bunch of hippies here on the beach, and I'm like, "Oh, I live in Costa Rica," and I'm like, "Well, what is it?" And I go, "I don't want to do that. That sounds like LSD." And they're like, "No, Mike, it's not like LSD." And I go, one thing led to another, and I talked to a friend. He says, put his hand out, "Congratulations, Mike." I go, "What?" He's all, "The best thing you can do for yourself." I go, "Really?" Get in the car with these people and go. And I went to, fortunately, I was uh, blessed enough to have gone to something that lasted for 3 nights of medicine over a 1 week period, which is when I suggest to people that when people are ready to do it, I suggest that you do it that way and not do a one-nighter and not do a two-nighter. You do it the right way the first time. And then after that, it's all good. You do what you want. So yeah, how do you explain that? Well, I'll tell you this. The biggest part about it for me was absolutely blue. I remember the moment that it happened, and the things that people say, oh, you're hallucinating. Hallucinating to me sounds like it wasn't real. It's very real. It's just as real as this is. It's that you're just stepping into maybe like another dimension, if that's what we're going to, I
Absolutely.
mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
these things are as real as, I mean, and it's weird. They know all about you. If there's
Hmm.
a they or whatever, it knows all about you, and it shows all these things in your life. And you're like, how does this thing know that I've never told my girlfriend, who I do love, but I just was afraid to say it, that I'd never said it, but being with her for 8 years. And she said it to me. Oh, how does it know that? Right. Because
Mm.
it's a part of you somehow. There
Sure.
is no separation. We all believe
Right.
everything's separate. That's over there. This is over here. And that's what's getting us into this mess in the first place, which somehow we chose to be in, and here we are in this third dimensional trap. Well, these medicines, what they do is they open the curtain of the third
Hmm.
dimensional illusion, and you go, oh wow, and you're able to go see and feel and hear and connect to something you've never connected to. And then that curtain's got to close because it's temporary. And it's what you do with what you got
Yeah.
from that ceremony or those ceremonies in your life. I
Hmm.
see so many people, my brothers and sisters, that go back to the medicine over and over. And I've done that too. I've sat
Yeah.
over 200 times.
Yeah.
But that's because I live in a medicine community, but I never got this feeling like I need to do medicine. A lot of people depended on it for their happiness. And I would really, caution people to watch that and to really just take what you got and then bring it into your life. And
Yeah.
it is unexplainable, and it's huge, and it's just one of other medicines, which I've also had two other massive awakenings on two other medicines.
Hmm. Yeah. The processing and integration part of it is
Yes.
essential. That what you see is a gift. You're given a gift to bring back to this reality. And if you're not processing that first and also integrating it into your current life. I mean, I've actually worked with clients who were really messed up by an ayahuasca trip because there was no one there to process and integrate with. So they get these terrible visions and they think their life is terrible. It's like, well, you have, this is what you are, the language that's being used is not literal, right? It's imagery. And so we need to think in those terms, and we need to understand the messages in those terms. Right. So that's why, and that might be why the brothers and sisters of yours who are going back to like, I need more information. Well, process what you have, right?
Yeah,
Process what you were given, because it is a gift every time. I don't
it's
care
a
if it's
gift.
cannabis or ayahuasca or, or whatever it is that you're journeying with.
Yeah.
Those are gifts that we receive.
I
That's
I
why we
actually
call it
use
medicine.
That's what we call medicine. Yeah, I actually use the medicine to help me, like with cannabis oil. I haven't told anybody this, that many people this, but like when I go into the process of writing, I'm not a big cannabis user because I don't like to become, it's very easy to fall into a bit of a habit. Um, and also I don't really, for some reason it feels weird when it comes on and it's strong, and I only use oil. I don't smoke it. So
Uh,
I use it though when I'm in the process of writing my books, and oh my God, it because I'm very sensitive. It literally
yeah,
takes me out of my body and brings me into the scene. And there are my characters in the book, and they're all I'm like, oh my God. And so I have all these things ready. Like I got recorders ready. I've got things to write on the whiteboard. It's hard for me to write because I'm so sensitive. Like I'll take 3 drops of oil or 4, and and it comes
yeah,
in so hard and heavy. Like it's not something that I go, okay, now I have to dive in and try to figure out what I'm going to write about.
right.
It's just,
You're
I
trying to keep
actually have
up.
to. That's it. I actually have to, like, I take it and then I'm like, okay, I know I got an hour and a half, and I
Uh-huh.
clean the house and I make the food and I eat it real fast. And I'm like, I try to get ready because when it comes on, it's like a freight train, and I got to be ready to take down all the info.
Right, right. Yeah, you're
So
taking
many
notes
of
at
the
that
stories,
point. Yeah,
yeah, many of the
you're
stories in the book
taking
come from there.
dictation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. So that's beautiful. And I think that's the main point. No matter the approaching plant medicine or earth medicine, if you're using psilocybin, because psilocybin is not, mushrooms aren't plants, but that we are treating it with that kind of care and respect, and not like, I have
Reverence.
friends who will like consult the I Ching every time they have to like decide what to buy at the grocery store. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like,
Gets a little woo woo.
yeah, it's you know what? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So so again, using it with respect, using it with the understanding that you are endeavoring on a very, it's space travel is what it is. And you don't send somebody out into space without proper training and the proper equipment. So understanding that we are boarding the spaceship or whatever it is, has to be done with great reverence. And what you bring back, the gifts, the rocks from the planet that you've visited are important. And so and this is also part of doing that inner work that we've been talking about this whole time. Not that you have to use plant medicine to do that. That certainly is not the case. As a shamanic practitioner, we have never used plant medicine as those ceremonies. We use drumming, sonic driving, which also puts you in trance state. So it doesn't mean you have to do that, but how important doing the inner work is, and moving past the victim mindset. And this is my favorite subject to talk about this week, so we're going to talk about it too, the importance of self in community, and community being it's a buzz thing. It's a buzzword now, you know, the village crafting, village creating, community creating. But I feel that the community is only as strong as its individuals, which really makes the case for why do we deal with the victim mindset? Why do we deal with our other childhood wounding in the first place? You know, how do we work our individual solitude where we need to do this inner work? How do we bring that into the world of community? And you were saying you have a community where you are, right? Yeah. So how does that work with so many individual psyches within a community? How do you find that combines? How do you find that works together cohesively?
Well, I'm actually in the process of building a literal intentional community where people can come and live and all that. And then I live in this community where there's a bunch of brothers and sisters and are really close. We're all close to each other, and we sit in ceremony together. I think it's one thing to live in a place like this and you kind of have your tribe and your friends and everything. But I think that the thing that's difficult about what I'm doing and other intentional communities where they're really concentrating down on and making a group is that there are everyone has their distortions. All of us, I do, everybody does. And so the only way that it's going to work is with full communication, full authenticity. Authenticity. If something happens, if something gets funky, there's got to be a group where we all sit down and talk, and we work it out. Not this hierarchy thing, like you're out because it's hard for me because I'm the one that's putting it together, and I'm like, God, this guy drinks alcohol, and I don't really want alcohol on my land, you know. I mean, my drink and all that. It's nothing against any of it, but I'd rather not have it, you know. Right. And so another person is stuck still in this idea that, and he's not. They haven't moved on yet, but there's these great potential possibilities. Another one is like very much like the land nobody should own it, and I should be able to walk across this guy's property to go to the river, which, you know what, he's right ultimately. And we also live in this place called planet Earth where there are all these rules set up and we live in a different world. It's like saying, well, money shouldn't exist. Well, I don't like the word shouldn't because it does. And does Charles Eisenstein have a great idea for this sacred economics and this gift economy? Yes. Is it something that we can implement today? No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And you know,
yeah, he's great. I love reading his stuff. Yeah, beautiful. Right. So inner work is important, being able to communicate when there is conflict instead of automatically rejecting people, which causes all sorts of other energetic issues. Yeah, very important. Beautiful. So how can people find you, Michael, and how can people find your books?
Well, I think you'll have a thing there at the bottom, right?
Yes, I will have all this. But
yeah, my website, everything's on there, michaelmcginnis.com. And we're going to start putting podcasts on there and all that stuff. Spelled McGinnis, but again, it'll be below. And my book's on Amazon, and the Audible's out for book number 1, and I'm going to record Audible book number 2 next month. I'm going to California to sit in the studio and do that. It's not easy.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I've done it. It's insane.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big. But that's great, and it's great to hear the author's own voice. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Excellent. Michael McGinnis, thank you so much for being on Self Talk. This was incredible and needed.
Thank you.